You wearing any pants?
No.
Okay.
Hello everyone, now we're on to season 2 of Sherlock, my preferred season of Sherlock, and we are going to talk about A Scandal in Belgravia. It was directed by Paul McGuigan, produced by Sue Virtue, written by Stephen Moffat, and believe it or not, aired 2 years ago, January 1st, 2012. I'm gonna be straight up honest and say that there's absolutely no scene in this episode that I think is not good. Basically, it's all amazing. I'm just putting it right out there. Every single scene entertains me. I think they're all hilarious. I think they're all amazing. I think they're all acted insanely amazing. So instead of going on a "this is the best episode ever" rant, I want to go through scene by scene, but I'll be very quick about it because there's no way I can talk about every single one. Now, the solution to the cliffhanger was perfect. Whoever thought of it is a genius because it is a hilarious way to end it. Staying Alive, a very ironic song to play during the time. And I just love it. Now, I absolutely adore the scene in the beginning where there are many clients coming in and John's writing a blog post for each single case. It's kind of a fast-forward look at everything they've been going through, and I love how Sherlock doesn't understand why people are reading that blog and not his own blog. He's so stubborn about it. The 243 types of tobacco ash. It's just a good opening to reintroduce us to these characters after season 1 aired. And then, of course, we have the Deerstalker idea, which is absolutely perfect. A huge, great reference to the original stories. Now, skipping to the Buckingham Palace scene, I love this scene because it really shows how John and Sherlock really are friends, that we haven't really had this sit-down moment where they laugh with each other and they really understand each other's humor, and it's great to see something like that. But then adding in the element of Mycroft and this Irene Adler mystery and like this really beautiful setting of Buckingham Palace, it's just another perfect way to set up the exciting episode. Now, I love the way that the story sets up the parallels between the character of Sherlock and the character of Irene. Right after the Buckingham Palace scene, you see that Irene has got to get ready with her battle dress. Sherlock's got to get ready with his disguise. And even before this, when Sherlock was learning of Irene, he was looking at his pictures. Irene was looking at his pictures. The blood of John punching Sherlock, which is another phenomenal scene on its own, and her putting on the blood-colored lipstick. It's just a constant parallel between these two intelligent forces, and the way the story tells it, the way Stephen Moffat wrote it, is just brilliant. And then, of course, we gotta talk about the naked scene. Now, I'm sure everybody's, blah about it, whatever, because she's naked or whatever, but it's a professional show, and this is a really interesting look at Sherlock's character, at Irene's character, at the way John reacts to these characters. I think the thing about the story is it's just so well written that anything can happen and you'll totally buy it. Just the dialogue between Irene and Sherlock trying to get back at her, but because he can't see what she's like, because she's wearing nothing, it's literally the perfect disguise, and I love that. And later, when the Americans come in probably one of the most tense scenes, when John is about to be shot, when Sherlock figures this out, we wonder how it happens, the action sequence, and just the fact that the code was our measurements. Like, all these little things connect throughout this scene, and it's just phenomenal. I haven't even talked about the hiker yet. The mystery of the man who died at the river was so interesting. I had no clue, but it was such an interesting resolve. I would have never guessed that. And, I mean, Irene is just as impressed. Brain is the new sexy is all. The constant mystery throughout the episode with Irene's phone code is also just amazingly done. Yes, Sherlock's got it. It's gotta be 1895. It's gotta be 221B. All these coincidences, and they just aren't right until the very end. I don't know where to begin with the Christmas scene. I can go on a tangent on how much I love it, so I have to try to keep it condensed. It's just so brilliantly written for each character. And if you watch everything that happens in the scene, all the actors have subtle reactions to the other characters. In the background, you can always see stuff happening. It's charming, it's funny, it gets really emotional, it's beautiful, the setting is great, it's Christmas time, and I just love it. I'm going to talk about it more later, but this is, hands down, probably one of my favorite scenes in the entire show. Another scene happens, and that scene's also one of my favorite scenes in the whole show. The scene where John finds out that Irene is alive. This scene is so amazingly acted from Laura Pulver and Martin Freeman. It's probably, I think, one of the best acted scenes in the entire show. It's tense, the constant switch between John's face to Irene's face during the dialogue, and just how important the dialogue is. And Martin Freeman in this scene, I always stress this is my favorite scene Martin Freeman acts in, other than the Reichenbach Fall. And finally, even though I've skipped a bunch of scenes, the scene where Irene tries to work an agreement with Mycroft after she's won, after she's tricked Sherlock into telling him the code on the phone. This scene blows my mind. I did not see it coming at all. Everyone does an amazing job in this. You could see the subtleties of Sherlock realizing that Irene loves him, the weight of this scene, the gravity of it all, because earlier we thought that Sherlock might actually be reciprocating these feelings, and the fact that Sherlock is still cold-hearted. We think as an audience that he's lost respect for her because he's figured out that she is Sherlocked, which, hence my URL, is one of the best little moments this show has. Stephen Moffat's a genius. You could say whatever you want about him as a person, but he is a genius. And I am so happy that she was saved in the end. Sherlock still thinking she's worth living, that she was so amazing that she beat him, that Sherlock took the time to save her life. Just like Sherlock gave up so much to save John Lestrade's and Mrs. Hudson's lives in the Reichenbach Fall. Now, Sherlock in this episode is great because we really see the core of him in this, due to the fact that Irene challenges him. How he's slowly losing this constant battle, how she disarms him, how confused he gets. The thing I actually want to talk about most with Sherlock in this episode is the Christmas scene. We see just how bad he is with people and the pressure of having all these people around him. He wants to do what he can to fit in with these people, and the only way he knows how to do that is by deducing things, and the Molly thing is so heartbreaking for Molly. Sherlock just, he was an ass, if you want me to be honest, and the fact that he realized this blows my mind, and he apologizes, and this is one of the biggest Sherlock moments, I think, in the entire show. The fact that it shocked him that Molly liked him is even more heartbreaking, because it's clear that she does, and the fact that he didn't even realize that, despite his deduction powers, is so heartbreaking. But Sherlock was great in this episode, and I can go on this forever, so the characters are just really well done. Now, Irene is such a wonderful character because she's striking, she's smart, she uses her seduction and her brilliance to get her way in the world. Her phone is her protection. It's just, you can, probably have another show just about Irene going through life. I mean, it'd probably be rated R. I actually am glad that John was kind of sidetracked for Irene, because clearly she was Sherlock's match. And it's very dramatic and shocking when she beats Sherlock, metaphorically and literally, with the riding crop. Yes, she begs in the end, but you understand why. And people have said that because of this she's weak. She's still brilliant. I still think she's an amazing character, and when people say that she's weak, that kind of bothers me, because she did one-up him. She is the woman. While John wasn't in this episode as much as usual, whenever he was in this episode, he was basically perfect. We get a good sense that him and Sherlock are really close friends at Buckingham Palace. Martin does a great job being hilarious at his reactions to Irene being naked, and the constant jealousy he kind of has in the background is absolutely hilarious. Finding out that Irene is alive, I just think Martin did an amazing job in this episode. You can see just how much he cares for Sherlock. It's just like what they said. John says, "I'm not gay," and Irene says, "Well, I am. Look at us both." Mycroft had a much more important role in this episode. He's very cold throughout it, but once the horrible situation happens when Bond Air is ruined, you can see just how stressed out he gets from his job. He even admits his mistake for bringing his brother into this horrible situation. It's kind of foreshadowed by Mrs. Hudson earlier, saying he shouldn't have gotten Sherlock involved. Then we have Mycroft and Sherlock's scene by themselves, where this is really our first look that these two are brothers, and that they understand how they don't feel like other people do, with one of the most important lines being, "Caring is not an advantage." And all the minor characters in this episode are wonderful. Mrs. Hudson is a BAMF. Lestrade, while I still wish we see more of him, he was used perfectly in this episode, and him at the Christmas party, if you just watch his face the entire time, it is gold. And Molly Hooper, Molly is amazing in this episode. You really understand her pain. We sympathize with her, with what Sherlock has just done to her. We get a real good sense of how lonely and sad she is because she comes to the morgue on Christmas Day. And her jealousy towards Sherlock with the phone is great too, but Molly Hooper is just so precious. She's definitely one of my favorite characters. Now, this episode has some of the best visuals in the entire show. Granted, it's probably because it's the last episode they made production-wise, but it's just phenomenal. I can't get over how amazing the hiker case was. It's shot gorgeously. The transition from Irene's house to the car, which made the exhaust go off. The field is gorgeous, and the hikers being still while Sherlock and Irene are working out the deduction. The spin, the 360 spin on the floor when Sherlock has the drugs. Irene figuring out the case again outside. The bed going up to Sherlock as it transitions back to his home. All these little things that just make the episode so unique. Not to mention the location was just gorgeous. All the locations are gorgeous. It's probably the prettiest episode. Sherlock's deductions are even a little bit different too. There are little noises that describe what the text on the screen is. So when he deduces one of the guards has dogs, you hear the barking dogs in the background. So I like the way they do that too. And the question marks when he can't figure out Irene, that was perfect. Overall, Paul McGuigan just directed this episode so beautifully. I mean, there's even this one shot where the car that John is in is going across the water. I mean, what else is there to say? There's just so many technical things with this episode that just work. Another big plus of this episode is the music, definitely. See, so far I've been saying in my videos how the music matches the episode. This one enhances the episode. Like, during the client scene at the beginning, the song is catchy, and it's fun, and it's Sherlock-y, even though it's not exactly the Sherlock music. Irene's theme is beautiful. I can't get over just how pretty it is. And even the timing of when the music goes on and off is really good, like in the Buckingham Palace when it goes do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do, and then it like cuts off at Sherlock just sitting on the couch in Buckingham Palace with nothing but a sheet, and it's just completely silent. The text noise, that was pretty funny. And if you listen carefully, there's always this heartbeat noise that transitions between one scene to another that makes things really tense. Even the Mrs. Hudson music, when she gets kidnapped, the slow build-up to just the anger you can feel Sherlock have. And the music at the end, the epic music that Irene is alive, that entire final song is just so perfect. Like, I have no complaints about the music either. Every song is really fitting. Overall, if it isn't already obvious, I adore this episode. I have almost no problems with this episode. I think the only problem I could possibly have is, and I forgot what my problem was. This shouldn't come as much as a shocker, but this is my favorite episode. Alright, if you like this review, you can subscribe and watch my other Sherlock reviews. Bye!
You just couldn't resist it, could you? I've always assumed that love is a dangerous disadvantage. Thank you for the final proof.